6 days, we have seen our streets filled with marchers, outraged by the treatment of African Americans by law enforcement. A video of a Minneapolis police officer kneeling on the neck of George Floyd as he cried out that he couldn't breathe really shows the chasm between black and white, law and order, and justice and peace. As a country, we are better than this, although these interactions continue. 6 years ago, Black Lives Matter became a rallying cry after Michael Brown was fatally shot by a police officer in Ferguson. This was an international story that continues today. From it, we have seen municipal police reform, more training for police officers, more jobs and job opportunities from young African American men. But we still struggle with inequity, pushing back against the tidal wave of racism that sometimes blindsides us and sometimes stands proudly before us. In our schools and our public meetings, we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Justice for all. This is a glaring imperfection in our country, and these three words are not yet fully realized. As these demonstrations play out, they do so as we respond to a pandemic that affects many of our families, and a disproportionate number of them are African American. It's another example of inequity, underlying health conditions, limited access to health care, limited access to health insurance, and a target for a new virus that is highly contagious and one that we still don't have a vaccine to prevent infection. The pandemic has nearly shut down our economy. As we work to rebuild, we must focus on those who need it the most. This is a commitment that my administration has made, directing the $173 million of the federal stimulus grant to those families in those parts of our community that need it the most. We've set up a small business relief fund. We have awarded grants to organizations that deliver food to families who need it. And we have distributed PPE to law enforcement, to churches, and we've partnered with agencies in our community to get masks to those most vulnerable families who need it the most. We are a country that is scared, we are a country that is angry, and we're a country that is holding out for the promise of justice for all. And when it's abundantly clear that that promise has been broken, then we will see marchers in our street. Marchers who look like George Floyd, and mothers who are worried about the future for their sons. Allies cannot completely know what it's like to walk in a black man's shoes, but they do fully understand that it's time for change, and this is long overdue. As Prosecutor Wesley Bell said yesterday, this is not a black problem, this is an American problem. The only way to a better future is not to repeat the mistakes of the past. We are both a resilient, but also a fragile country. And the death of George Floyd will become a rallying cry, but it must be a rallying cry that unites us and does not drive us apart. As we continue to slowly reopen St. Louis County in a safe and responsible way, we'll start to do that with more business openings today. But let's start with a focus on some good news. The reason we're here today, the reason we have fewer deaths than previously forecast, is because of individual responsibility. Common sense is a powerful deterrent against a highly contagious virus. We've all been told repeatedly, social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands. And because of these decisions, we're in a better place today. Allow us to come to a point where we can get our businesses back online with guidelines to protect both our employees and also the patrons of those businesses. So here's a rollout for the remaining businesses in St. Louis County. Bars can reopen on June 8th, and guidelines will be posted on stlcorona.com. All other businesses can begin reopening on June 15th. These include gyms and fitness centers, movie theaters, arcades and bowling alleys, conference venues and banquet centers, community centers, museums, and mass sporting events. And these are like league tournaments with fans. Casinos, conference venues, and pools. Guidelines that are not already posted on stlcorona.com will be posted by the end of the day or by tomorrow. While gyms can reopen on June 15th, outdoor fitness training can begin today. We've had representatives from various business sectors work with our Department of Public Health, with our business leaders to develop these guidelines. It was very constructive and fruitful conversations, and we're grateful for their help. There will be limits on crowd sizes, requirements for masks, social distancing, and cleaning and disinfecting protocols, all necessary to make sure that employees and their patrons are kept safe. As more people are out and about, this is no time to be selfish. This is no time to think that you are an exception for the rules. Common sense saves lives, and bad decisions will jeopardize the good work that we've done to get us to the point where we are today. We talked about a gradual reopening of our remaining businesses. Thank you, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
With all the protests this weekend, pretty simple question, do you think we'll see a rise in any COVID cases?
Well, anytime there are mass gatherings, and we recognize that a protest and the ability for people to express their beliefs is important, but anytime there are mass gatherings, we need to be wary of wearing masks and social distancing. And we saw a lot of that on Saturday. If you saw the protests, it was very thoughtfully organized, very peaceful. On Saturday, we saw masks and we saw social distancing. Anyone who participates in these large crowds, who's not wearing a mask, who's not participating in social distancing, should quarantine, should stay away from others in high risk, and should recognize that they are at risk for contracting COVID-19. This is still very present in our community, and we hear this conversation all over the country. These protests that are an important part of an expression of concern in our community need to be done safely with social distancing guidelines and with masks. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.